I'd like to welcome the Minister into the Chamber and wish him well in his new job. I had the pleasure of working with a lot of close colleagues of Minister Éireann on Dublin City Council, and I certainly think that they are amongst the most talented political people, and we shared an awful lot in common in terms of how things work on a local authority level. The Labour Party welcomes the provisions of the bill and the establishment of the Climate Action Fund. However, we will be supporting Senator Alice Mary Higgins' amendment. However, just a word of warning that we don't think that the challenges of climate change will be tackled by solely relying on a levy of fossil fuels, and want to echo the call of my colleague in the Dáil, Deputy Duncan Smith, for a further debate on how we will fund the Climate Action Plan, and if there's an anticipated timeline for planning the Climate Action Fund and putting the Climate Action Fund on a statutory basis beyond this bill. My colleague Annie Hoey will address the question of a just transition, particularly for workers employed in what is now considered to be dirty industries. We in the Labour Party will not tolerate a transition that doesn't put workers and their right to be employed and secure well-paid jobs at its heart. There can be no green transformation without fairness and justice for workers at its heart. In the first call for applications, there's some really good projects there, particularly systems such as district heating in Dublin City and South Dublin. But I think in the second call for action, there needs to be more investment in retrofitting for our local authorities' housing stock, as Senator Mary Fitzpatrick talked about, and providing grants to local authorities to make their housing stock and systems more energy efficient. In particular, areas such as green roofs. Within Chambers Street Flats, which was recently developed, myself and a couple of your Green colleagues, Minister Éireann, were trying to push for green roofings as part of the new development in terms of the plans, and we were told that we weren't able to do that and there wasn't funding for it, and there were also issues with the sustainability of it. I'd like to see more money go into research in terms of how we can make both existing stock but also newer stock come up with innovative ways of both being more passive but also mitigating against the flood risks that are in Dublin and in Dublin City. I'm a little bit concerned with the previous government and some of the calls in terms of pushing for electric vehicles. I would like to see more money going into sustainable forms of transport and public transport, rather than merely moving our car stock over from fossil fuels to electric vehicles. There's the societal cost to congestion that has to be incorporated into that, and I wouldn't want to see a huge amount of money within the Climate Action Fund going towards simply funding electric vehicles. It's an unsustainable use of land, it's an unsustainable use of road space, and I think we need to be pushing more money into investing in sustainable forms of transport, making our public transport system electric, but also potentially making our public transport system free in order to do it. And I certainly welcome some of the moves by local authorities over the course of COVID to make our roads more cycle friendly. For the second round of applications, one of my concerns are that the applications that are being funded have been much larger. They require large organisations to get involved. There's an awful lot of research and development in them. And I'd like to see us moving towards more smaller community initiatives. Not so it can be like the Lotto funding or the sports capital grants, but actually that local communities from the bottom up are able to come up with ideas that might work within their own local area, and a certain community fund to be established from that, either administered to local authorities or local communities be able to apply for small funding in terms of that. And then lastly, I want to talk about density within cities and a city fight back against climate action, and the need to invest more in green spaces. As I said previously, this is not just important for the health and well-being of people within the cities, but it's a really important part of our flood defences. What was 1 in 100 years flooding that was taking place within cities are now going to become more frequent. So we need to have a way of where we have smaller concrete spaces that we're actually greening them and using them and being able to put in pocket parks to assist in our flood defences. Even small things like giving people grants for gardens to be able to invest in our flood defences, and green roofing as well. So I'd like to hand over to my colleague Senator Annie Hoey.